Good day. Today we will continue our report the specific determinants of morality. So, para mas ma-remember natin, babalik ko natin mga importante nga part si aton discuss last meeting. So, specific determinants of morality, kung na-remember niyo, ang mga iliit aton mga factors that serves as the measure of the goodness and the evilness. So, may ada kita 3 types. First is the end of the agent, the end of the action, and the circumstances. So, and the end of the agent, ang mga motive si tao. The end of the action is resulta si motive si tao, and the circumstances is itong nagpapadagdag and nagpapalesen si responsibility. So, nganhi ha circumstances ng discuss natin is focus talaga din is who, what, how, by what means, when, and why. And yun is mayada hiya 4 types. First is aggravating circumstances. Second, mitigating justification, accepting circumstances. So, uso sa naton. Aggravating circumstances, amoy init nagpapadagdag sa responsibility. Mitigating, amoy init nagpapalas. Justifying, manhi is what I justification sa murder. Pero, nagkakamaya dahil kung self-defense na ito. And, accepting circumstances. Nganiha, accepting circumstances. Dire ito basta-basta na accepting ka. Na exempted ka dayon. Dire. May ginkikita ito. First, age below 9 years. Insanity, violence, above 9 but below 15, who acted without discernment. Amoy right, mga exempted hitod na responsibility. So, gindiscuss kay hapon natin situation ethics. Nganihit situation ethics, dili talaga sinusunod pangkalahatan na batas. Ang ira din susunod din batas love. So, gindiscuss gihapon natin mga types of theory. So, first is deny existence moral. Yung ikaduha liwat is what I deny. So, para sa atong continuation set aton report, Miss Tricia at magi-discuss and the other members. So, Miss Tricia, please continue the reporting.
Critical evaluation. Passing now to a critical appreciation of the theory in focus, let us note first of all that the criticism and oppositions of our opponent, the situational moralist, against our scholastic positions may be summed up and reduced to the following basic points. First, scholastic ethics is premised on the static view of reality, whereas nature of reality is dynamic and ever-changing. Second, it meets and attempts to solve moral problems which are concrete, personal, and unique by means of generalities by the use of supposedly universal and immutable principles which cannot adequately, accurately, and squarely solve a particular, specific, and unique moral problem. Third, it solves moral problems a priorisly, deductively, starting with a set of universal premises and they drawing particular conclusions therefrom, whereas a moral decisions or a judgment is a matter of experience, perceived directly or derived and arrived at only from concrete, unique experience. Fourth, its treatment and interpretations of morality fail to give due emphasis of human freedom, the most distinctive features of the human personality, which freedom grants him autonomy in questions and matters of morals. Are the rules of morality variable? Underlying the objections of the situationalist in his denial of the reality of applicability of universal, immutable rules of morality. Since morality, according to him, all depends on the situations, which is variable, then morality itself cannot be the same for all men, for all times and places, as contended in scholastic ethic. So here is the ethics and law. Ethics deals with morality, and morality proposes a norm of or law of conduct by which right is distinguished from wrong. When we speak morality, we mean primarily the moral law. Law may be defined as crystallized ethics, the metaphysical basis of law. From the metaphysical point of view, every being has its own specific nature. Its intrinsic work of the tendencies which naturally flow from being to the end of the being. Supposed basis that this means everything is good because every being has a nature and end suited to the nature. This is another way of saying that everything has its natural law. General concept of law. Law in its widest sense means the rule of norm which governs the nature and or actions of things. Thus, the law of triangles govern the nature essence of triangles. The laws of physics govern the movements of inanimate objects, etc. and begins in the universe, whether living or non-living, are governed by laws in sense. The laws are styled laws of nature or simply natural laws.
So, the eternal laws. There is in every man the voice of reason which tells him of a law. Do good and avoid evil. As soon as man attains the age of reason, he would naturally know without his learning it before, to distinguish between right and wrong. Meron sa bawat tao ang tinig ng katwiran na nagsasabi sa kanya ng isang batas. Gumawa ng mabuti at umiwas sa masama. Sa sandaling ang tao ay umabot sa edad ng pangangatwiran, natural na malalaman niya nang hindi ito natututunan noon pa, upang makilala ang pagitan ng tama at mali. Human acts are those of which a man is master, na kung saan siya ay may kakayahan na gawin o hindi gawin ang gusto niya. Yes, it is true, we are physically free to perform certain acts or to omit them o alisin ang mga ito na gumawa ng isang bagay o salungat nito, na piliin ang kilos na ito kaysa sa iba. But are we also morally free in regard to all such acts? Is it right for me on all occasions to do whatever my inclination prompts me to do? My reason plainly answers no. It is evident even to a child that some actions are good in themselves, morally good, and others bad in themselves, morally bad. Ang mabuting gawa ay pinupuri at sinasang-ayunan ng ating dahilan. At siya ay tinatawag na tama. Ang masasamang gawa sa kabaliktaran, ang ating katwiran, ay hindi sumasang-ayon at sinisisi. At siya na tinatawag na mali. Ang mga idea ng tama at mali, tulad ng katotohanan at kamalian, substance and accident, cause and effect, o sanhi at bunga, ay tinatawag na primary ideas, na karaniwan sa lahat ng tao. Hence, they are trustworthy ideas, na ibig sabihin, ang pagkakaibang umiiral sa isip sa pagitan ng tama at mali ay tumutugma sa isang pagkakaibang umiiral ng may layunin sa mga gawa ng tao o ang tinatawag nilang human acts. Thomas Aquinas is nothing else but God's plan in creating the universe, God's law which directs all things to their proper ends. So, eternal law was God's perfect plan, not fully knowable to humans. It determined the way things such as animals and planets behave and how people should behave. The eternal law for Aquinas is that rational plan by which all creation is ordered. The natural law is the way that the human being participates in the eternal law. Thomas Aquinas believed about God. Among other things, he was a prominent proponent of natural theology and a father of a school of thought encompassing both theology and philosophy, known as Thomism. He argued that God is the source of both the light of natural reason and the light of faith. Thomas Aquinas also means God's rational purpose and plan for all things. And because the eternal law is part of God's mind, and then it has always and will always exist. The eternal law is not simply something that God decided to some point to write. The eternal law then applies to all creatures, rational, irrational, and inanimate. The law so applied to created things is what is called the natural law or law of nature. The law of nature or natural law, in its most extended sense, refers to certain principles inspired only by nature that are common to men and to animals. On this law are based the union of male and female, the procreation of children and concern for their education, the love of liberty, the conservation of one's own person, and the effort each man makes to defend himself when attacked by others. The physical and moral law. A law, in order to be true, law must be promulgated or made known to be subject in order to be truly binding. The eternal law is promulgated to creatures by being embedded in their nature. To man, the eternal law is made known by his reason or conscience. By conscience, we mean reason, pronouncing judgments on the morality of actions. This law of conscience is called the natural moral law. It is nothing else but the same eternal law made known to man by reason. God has written his law, not on blocks, on marbles, or on scrolls of paper, but on the heart of man. So, what is the difference between physical law and moral law? On a superficial level, the meaning of necessity or pangangailangan in each is different. For physical laws, it is the necessity of causality, what must happen if something does happen. For moral laws, it is the necessity of obligation, what must happen if something could happen by being done. It follows what, whereas no event can violate a physical law, people can violate moral laws by not obeying. Other classification of physical and moral law. Physical law is the one that is written down. Moral law is how you were raised, thought, or your natural beliefs. So, human positive laws and the moral laws. The laws of the state are based on and derive their binding force from the natural moral laws. Without positive laws, the moral law would be subject to the individual interpretations of man, and there will arise many conflicting interpretations, and this would inevitably result in social disorder and chaos. Positive laws are human-made laws that oblige or specify an action. Positive law also describes the establishment of specific rights for an individual or group. Morals, on the other hand, refer to general principles or standards of behavior that define human conduct within society but are not compulsory to be followed. Positive morality is moral norms in one society which are not established by the government, but which nevertheless exist. Quotations. Right reason is indeed a true law, in accord with nature, diffused among all men, unchangeable, eternal. By its commands, it calls man to their duty. By its prohibitions, it deters them from vice. Next reporter, please.
Life and law. Existence, inescapability, immutability, consequence of the moral law. Very early in life, man become aware that he is living in the world of laws. The series of happiness which lead him to conclusion is nearly unpleasant but whether he ever formulate the idea or crystallize it in a word, or whether he remain merely the practical man in usual things of unreflective men, he acquired the certainty that there is a whole series of conditions and results in the world which may fairly will be counted upon. As there is laws that govern the body, as so there is a laws in particular, the moral law which governs the soul. The moral law is no more made by men. It depends on the approval of men, or anyway is capable by men, than the material law. So, based ha akon pagkaintindi, living in the world of law, there an action, or may kinihimo tao na nagresulta in conclusion, or mga unpleasant result na nag-performulate to idea. Bagan for example, itawo aware na may law. If error neglect or derera sumunod, may consequence, may valuation, may punishment. So, life and law are always connected. So, para talaga natin maintindihan there's always connections between life and law. Kada action itawo may result. May outcomes, it's probably positive outcome or negative outcome. So, purely to be connected in definition of law, although na automatic na applied na law, may mga nahihimo at mga tao na pwede hiya mag-violate hiya mag-violate. So through law, pwede gyap mabalik ha tao ang iya actions. May dagyap consequence and punishments. Law and justice. Laws are made for the purpose of securing the common good. If they are perverted from this end, they case to be laws pending in the conscience, and the government that enforce those laws in tyrannical. A tyrannical says by Thomas, it is not just it work, not for the common good, but for the private good of those governing. Hence, to disturb such a government is not equivalent to sedition, unless perhaps when the tyrannical government inordinately disturbs so that the people suffer more harm from the disturbance than from tyranny, it is rather tyrant that is sedition. Law and justice. Law and justice are connected, pero dili hiya masyado maintindihan kay justice is a concept that is based on equality of the right of fairness and morality. Ang laws naman is palaod na ginhimo or ginihimon government ngan international government. Laws are written norms that regulate the actions of a person or a citizen and of the government itself. Justice is a principle that may or may not recognize. Next one, we have human right and natural law. Natural law does not merely prescribe what is not to be done or what not to be done, but it recognizes rights, particular rights linked to the human person. So, for example, if natural law that has the connections to human person is the law of justice, where one of us deserves to have a fair justice in any process of circumstances. To sum it up, natural law is say something about respect, or there's a present of respect where we cannot trespass the rights of one another. Because in this society, it is our duty to recognize and respect the right of one another. For short, natural law is our duty and responsibility to respect one of us.
Misconception of individual right. The misconception of individual right is the government may alter or abolish a right. Rights are an undeniable declaration of independence, which means they cannot be taken or even given away. They are not derived from government, so they cannot be taken away by government. All anyone can do is punish someone for exercising a right or impede its exercise by force or persuasion. Nevertheless, individuals still have the right. Limitation on rights are restrictions that are necessary to balance competing or conflicting rights or to harmonize rights with other public objectives. They are not a response to emergency situations. The full gamut of human rights. Full gamut means the complete range of things or a wide variety of things of that kind. Example of full gamut of human rights is the right to life, the right to a fair trial, freedom from torture and other cruel and inhuman treatment, freedom of speech, freedom of religion, and the rights to health, education, and an adequate standard of living. Beyond declaration, example. Strategic and structural barriers and challenges, legal and political barriers and challenges, armed conflicts, and environmental ones.